From Depositional Practice.
If being fat gave you diabetes, all fat people would have diabetes. If being fat gave you joint pain, all fat people would have joint pain. If being thin made you healthy, all thin people would be healthy. If being fat gave you the virus, all fat people would have the virus. If being fat made you unlovable, all fat people would be single.
I gotta give him that one. That one's actually true.
If fat people were the current beauty standard, being fat would be healthy and thin people would be shamed. If dieting worked, you would be thin.
Ich bin gelangweilt, replied.
If smoking caused lung cancer, all smokers would have lung cancer. If drinking caused cirrhosis, all drinkers would have cirrhosis.
A-box ads.
If driving a car can cause death, all drivers would be dead.
Hard to believe it's even real. My 4-year-old would see through this logic. From Read. Underweight doesn't have to mean thin. A person who is underweight can be underweight at any size if the weight that they are is less than the weight that they would be without restrictive eating. A person doesn't have to be in a thin body in order to be underweight. If I restricted what I ate today and lost weight due to that restriction, I would be underweight, even if I was still statistically in the healthy weight range. Likewise, if my natural weight is around 200 pounds, and this is the weight that I am when I eat unrestricted, then if I should restrict food and settle at 190 pounds, I am underweight. Like it or not, body diversity is a real thing. Some people are in small bodies, some people are in larger bodies. Whatever size body you're in, if you restrict food and lose weight as a result of that restriction, you are underweight. And I don't care what height you are either. 2 people can both be 5'6", and one might be 140 pounds, the other might weigh 200 pounds, but both are right. Both are healthy, set par. I had to look up the last bit. Ceteris paribus is Latin for all other things being equal. Transcendent Sea Witch replies, this is possibly the most ridiculous one I've seen so far. So anyone who's lower than the highest weight they've ever been is officially underweight. I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. Read adds, lol, it blows my mind. It was part of an article about the A eating disorder in overweight people, which yes, can absolutely happen. Atypical A eating disorder is a real thing, I don't dispute that, but that doesn't make this absurdity true. From Light Up Cosplays. You're interested in creating a population that's more in keeping with your aesthetic, and that makes you a peach. Okay, Butterscotch. Well, bless your pea-picking little heart, hon. Not from Georgia, but I am a peach. Speaking of which, Publix still has some peaches on sale, and now you made me hungry. Nom nom nom. Sophia Gatliff tweeted, my type of fat acceptance is, yes, I'm fat and I want to lose weight. Obesity is an illness, not something to be praised. Speaking as someone who lost 90 pounds. Mean Fat Girl was a little bit quiet this week. The only thing interesting I could find was, it's shameful how much disability activism does not ever do anything for fat phobia. Please fix your community. Is she now saying that being fat is a disability? Strange. I thought she said it was perfectly healthy. Huh. Put on your helmets, we're entering Reagan zone. There is no way to ethically sell weight loss. She continues. There isn't a single study where more than a tiny fraction of people succeed in long-term significant weight loss. The vast majority of people regain all that weight back, etc., etc. Then there are the health risks. Repeated intentional weight loss failures are independently linked to both physical and mental health issues, and diet, drugs, and surgeries risk fat people's lives and quality of life, making them ethically questionable at best. Which leads into a study that Double Signed brings us. This was published in BMC Medicine. Increased frequency of intentional weight loss associated with reduced mortality, a prospective cohort analysis. I'm not going to read the whole study to you, but their conclusion is as follows. Increased frequency of intentionally losing at least 5 pounds in midlife was associated with a lower risk of future death. Repeated attempts with moderate amounts of weight loss may provide benefit in longevity. So I guess Reagan better find a new talking point. Since now there's been a study that shows that weight cycling may be healthy for you. And I know of no studies showing that it is unhealthy. Focusing on ending weight stigma for the fattest people helps people of all sizes. That part of her comment seems sane, right? Let's continue. Too often the work of ending weight stigma for the fattest bodies gets derailed or pushed aside. Discussions of fat inclusion are often interrupted by thinner people talking about how they aren't always accommodated. New brands start at extra small to 3X and then talk about how they want to expand eventually, when they could have started with larger sizes and expanded into smaller sizes eventually. Excuses are made for why it's possible to accommodate fat people, but only up to a certain point, etc. Why is the example she always brings up for oppression that it's hard to find clothes? I mean, I understand it's a problem, but why is that her go-to? From Lisa Daisy. What is your set point? The weight you typically maintain when you eat to appetite. The weight that results when you listen to hunger and fullness cues. The weight you maintain when you don't fixate on weight and food. The weight you return to between diets. Suspicious Acadia. Between diets? Book Hermit. I'm starting to realize the issue here. Brought to us by Love Dove Bunny. Content warning, medical stuff, maybe non-fat acceptance. I have joint issues, EDs, and because of that, chronic pain and muscle pain. Everyone from docs to physical therapists are telling me that the extra weight for my body is putting strain on my joints, and that is why my pain has gotten so much worse since I gained weight. It definitely seems true. I'm not sure what to do about this, especially since dieting doesn't work, especially not long term. I believe in health at every size, but I am not healthy, and it does make sense that in my case it definitely is about size. Help me, I'm in a barrel, replies. HAES is part of the toxic acceptance movement, where it's more important to support someone, regardless of whether they make healthy choices, than to love them enough to tell them when they need to change. In this case, the person knows, deep inside, that HAES is wrong, but HAES is also easy and comfortable in the short term. I wish I'd known the phrase toxic acceptance a couple weeks ago. From Rainbow in the Sea. Skinny privilege is real, and saying skinny girls get made fun of too is like saying men get blank too, though. If this bothers you, I implore you to come to terms with your residual fat phobia and then eliminate it. Hashtag I'm once again blocking generously on this post because I will not tolerate fat phobia. Hotel Stationery replied. But men do get blank too. Again, is the word I can't say, and it's a problem. All blank is bad, and the world would be a much better place if we could eliminate all of it. Brought to us by Blue as the Sky. What happens when you attempt weight loss? 0 to 5% chance of long-term weight loss. 95% chance of staying the same weight or gaining weight. Also, 2/3 of dieters develop disordered eating patterns. 1/3 of dieters develop an eating disorder, and 2/3 of dieters regain more weight than they lost. Increased risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, some stuff I can't say, cortisol levels, stress, lower body image and self-esteem, increased weight stigma, etc. Princess Parabellum. Ooh, it's that etc. That'll get you every time. Nav 2001 plus. It's nothing to joke around about. I have an uncle who died from etc. From the Lil Bell.
I don't think that the rules of physics can really be applied to the human body. In order to know why someone's knees hurt, you'd have to do some investigations. In order to understand how 600 pounds of weight impacts the joints, you'd have to do a study. You can't just guess or use logic to come up with an answer. If you're asking for an educated guess, I'd say muscle strength was the biggest consideration, not stress on joints. But how do we know without evidence? Hope that helps.
OCR Amazon replied,
Educated guess?
Lol. Okay, lady. My educated guess is that muscles can't lift and move 600 pounds as easily as they can move 150, whether you have the strength of a professional powerlifter or not. Happy Meal adds, right. Also, I doubt it's really an educated guess when she thinks human bodies defy the laws of physics, like WTF, guy with shampoo and hair, guy laughing and crying, egg. Why Y'all So Darn Loud brings us The Wheel of Power and Privilege. The wheel contains a lot of stuff. For some reason, it's very American-centric. For example, people who speak English have all the power, and people who don't speak English have no power. Some of it makes sense. Rich people have more power than poor people. It contains a whole bunch of other things. But the one that stands out is body size. Slim people have all the power, and large people have no power? Kai the Devourer replies, "Yeah, stuff like this pisses me off. I am severely mentally disabled, currently on disability, was homeless in my early adulthood, and am still under the poverty line. I tried my absolute hardest in life. I graduated college with honors, published several academic papers, and I worked as long as I could until I couldn't anymore. I feel like my disability took so much away from me. I just can't believe people are comparing being unable to emotionally handle a small caloric deficit and fit into one seat on an airplane to the experiences I and other people who are poor and disabled had. When I was homeless, people treated me like garbage. I literally had trash thrown at me. When I tried to apply for jobs, people hung up on me because I couldn't give them an address. Homeless people aren't given the Cosmopolitan magazine covers and called brave and fierce like Tess Holliday was. It is socially unacceptable to refer to someone as fat, but people still use words like crazy and psycho, and nobody bats an eye and thinks about how that feels to those who really are crazy, despite their best efforts. Lawmakers aren't devising laws to run the morbidly obese out of town, like they do the homeless. Morbidly obese people aren't hurting themselves or having to put themselves in jail to get their meds because the state cut all funding to bariatric care. The mentally ill have to go through that BS. In summary, I hate this so much. I don't hate the idea of it. There are differing levels of privilege. I just hate that body size is squeezed in there. This one's brought to us by Plump Dev. Trigger warning, eating disorder, fat hate, weight loss surgery. I'm fairly picky about my friends, it's true. I hold my friends to a high standard and any bigotry must go. I've ended friendships over sexism, racism, ableism, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, and yes, fat phobia. Recently I ended a friendship because this friend decided to get weight loss surgery. She was involved in the fat acceptance movement, so it was a double blow and a personal betrayal. I decided it would be very bad for my health, mental and physical, to watch someone I care about go through all of that because of severe internalized fat hate. As someone with a 10-year history of having an eating disorder, I could not watch someone choose what amounts to a medically induced eating disorder. And in fact, medical anorexia can be an official side effect of these surgeries. I blogged about this in my personal blog and got bombarded with pro-weight loss surgery people calling me sexist slurs, threatening me and calling me a horrible person friend, all because I decided to look out for myself. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this blog post, it's that no friendship is worth your mental or physical health. No relationship is worth your health, period. Now, personally, my friend was completely oblivious to how her actions could affect me at all. I chalk this up to pure self-centeredness. May as well just die replied, I hate to break it to this person, but their 10-year history with an eating disorder isn't actually over. Alphaba brings us, y'all always talking about racism, sexism, colorism, and the tattoo community, but when will y'all admit to the fat phobia? I'm starting to notice that there's a trend with talking about issues. People only want to discuss the issues that directly affect the majority. No one ever wants to talk about fat-phobic people. Because the fact is, most of y'all are. I've met so many people in the tattoo industry I know, for a fact, would respond to me differently if I was smaller. Yawn. How many fat, darker-skinned tattooed artists are there? I don't know. From us to the clients, we should never feel uncomfortable to get tattoos. There are artists who refuse service to plus-size women, and the craziest part is, fat men don't have this problem. This stuff is a mess, and I won't stand for this stuff any longer. Stuff I can't say, Queen replies, I'm calling BS. I've seen plenty of fat tattoo artists and plenty of big girls with tats. Bogus post. I Sing Anyway brings us things that won't trick your hunger: a walk, a podcast, green tea, a phone call, meditation, and a journal prompt. Opal Teeth replies, none of these make me less hungry, nor are they supposed to. But I find when my day has more activity, more people, more focus, I can avoid mindlessly grazing. During the pandemic, I easily gained 20 pounds just from boredom and loneliness. Brought to us by Lisa Daisy. In fact, studies have shown that being fat is actually a protective factor if you ever end up in an ICU. Cue all the critics. Fat people are harder to ventilate. So, learn how to ventilate better. It's not their fault that their anesthesiologist is incompetent. Gaines Home Emporium replies, learn to ventilate better. Best little giggle I've had today. Forget about all that fat pushing down on the airway during intubation. Forget about the structural changes that happen in an obese person's chest wall, so they can't breathe CO2 out as effectively. Forget about all the inter-abdominal pressures on the lungs because of all the fat. Forget about the pressures required to lift an obese person's chest during inhalation, and that the lungs themselves can only take so much positive pressure before they pop. Forget about the endless research and papers on the subject. Forget about all the physical and medical limits and make sure that every doctor is a genie with phenomenal cosmic powers. Captain Trips adds, and forget about all the inflammatory factors in excess adipose tissue that make it more likely for obese people to need to be intubated in the first place. People just need to learn to defy physics. Brought to us by Le Spookman. Y'all remember Michelle Obama's whole obesity thing? She was fudging obviously and openly fat-phobic. Why didn't more people talk about this? It just wasn't as big a deal as it should have been. I'm seething. Not Original replies, maybe kids should eat more vegetables. How dare you? Kittens on a Rainbow. Seething at a campaign about kids eating more vegetables and moving more. From 2010. Mumrax adds, definitely nothing worse has happened in the political world since then. We need to get mad at Michelle Obama. Brought to us by Dry Preparation. Being fat doesn't cause poor health. The internet. But heart disease. Me. No, we've already covered this already. Being fat has very little impact on your risk of getting heart disease. Being male, getting older, and being a smoker are the biggest risks for heart disease. The internet. So? Me. So it's because of this false narrative that fat folks have become so oppressed that their health is actually impacted. So it has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But not for the reasons everyone thinks. So the narrative itself is the problem. The internet. So what you're really saying is that being fat isn't bad for your health, but living in an anti-fat world is? Seriously? Me. Yep, that's what I'm saying. The internet. Pause. But heart disease, joint pain, diabetes, cancer. Book Hermit replies, so they're just going to ignore the fact that sex and age are immutable, and you can change your smoking status and weight, and reliable medical studies control for sex, age, and smoking status, and conclude that people that are fat are at higher risk? And if stigma causes disease, people that live in communities where everyone is fat and they face very little, if any, fat stigma, should suffer less from weight-related illnesses. Southern US, Pacific Islands, etc. And fat people that live in communities that criticize fat people would suffer more. Colorado, Japan. But they don't! You can be fat and happy, and everyone can love you. And you can still get heart disease, diabetes, and cancer at higher rates than if you were at a healthy weight. But, I mean, if you're just going to ignore all the data and observations humans have made since the existence of written language, sure, being fat is not at all harmful to your health. From the Crystal Thestral. I believe this is more from the same person. The internet. Yeah, but extra weight on your joints. Me. Seriously? Who even came up with this ridiculous theory? Genetics and history of trauma surgery are two of the biggest risk factors for osteoarthritis. There's no evidence that extra weight really impacts your joints. Danimal Holocaust replies, yeah, having 300 pounds of pressure constantly on top of me would give me a history of trauma. Brought to us by Olivia Olive. Apparently it's somebody writing about something their doctor said to them. P.S. He told me this horrible scenario, if you don't lose weight, your arthritis is going to get bad, and you'll need knee replacement surgery, and we won't be able to get it because your risk of infection is too high, because your weight, and I'm not trying to scare you, but I do about 1 leg amputation per year due to diabetes and other factors. Fear-mongering much? He was literally trying to bully and scare me into getting bariatric surgery. This is fat phobia. This is medical bias. Fudge the system. Burn it all down. Edited to add that he didn't examine me at all. He didn't even look at my leg or foot that have been swelling up. The entire reason for my visit. AU Rugby replies, the doctor I view as my mentor, who convinced me to enter medicine, was a vascular surgeon. Man cut off at least 2 to 3 legs per week. Every week. Due to diabetes-related gangrene. Yikes. The person in this post is an absolute idiot. If you don't manage your diabetes, it will absolutely ruin your life. Medicine doesn't give a fudge about your political ideology, just about the basic facts regarding your health. K. Berry Sauce brings us, we live in a culture that prioritizes thinness and appearance over almost everything else, and that constantly shouts at us that losing weight is good no matter what the cost. We also live in a culture where fat people are judged, ridiculed, and discriminated against because of their size, so of course people want to lose weight. However, and I acknowledge that my thin privilege makes it easy for me to say this, I still don't recommend pursuing intentional weight loss. There is no safe, effective, evidence-based way to do so. So yes, there are legitimate reasons to want to lose weight, and I would never judge someone for wanting to lose weight. But as a healthcare provider, part of informed consent is letting clients know all the risks associated with pursuing intentional weight loss, because it's not risk-free. And diets aren't harmless. These are just some of the possible negative side effects. Weight cycling, which increases risk of heart disease and overall mortality. See the study mentioned much earlier in the video, which says that's not true. Increased binge eating, eating disorders, stress and anxiety about food, amenorrhea. I'm pretty sure amenorrhea doesn't happen unless you lose a lot of weight, like get down to a dangerous level or lose weight too fast. For any sane plan, that shouldn't be an issue. AM replies, we live in a culture where people are dying of preventable diseases, suffering unnecessarily, and spending more and more on healthcare, because predatory food companies and poor quality education have been allowed to take priority over the well-being of people. Brought to us by One Wing Honeybee.
Obesity is relative person to person and is why those, if you're this height, your goal should be this weight, are not really good. I'm 6'4", 462 pounds.
That's about 1.93 meters and 210 kilograms.
And wear size 38 pants. I'm certainly in what would be considered obese, but not morbidly. I only have 19 to 21% body fat ratio.
Come on.
I have an extremely abnormal muscle density, and I'm not even that big as far as how my muscle looks. I look like an average, slightly overweight, tall guy. I'm just extremely compact. If I lost every ounce of fat on me, I'd still be 300 pounds. Many factors can make your own personal healthy weight differ drastically.
Melody Joy replied, what is he, Wolverine with an adamantium skeleton? Interaction Anxious brings us, did you know 30 to 35% of normal dieters progress to pathological dieting? Of those, 20 to 25% progress to partial or full-blown eating disorders. About 80% of children have been on a diet before age 10. Stop the cycle. Stop dieting. Let that sink in. Cloud. 80%. 80% of kiddos. I refuse to be the reason my child deals with disordered eating in their life. They'll hear it everywhere else. They don't need to hear it at home. Art. What do you want for your child today? If you're stuck in this dieting mindset, start today to be free from that. You deserve food freedom, and so does your little one. Here's Shrapnel replies, unfortunately, there are a bunch of studies that show stats like these, and it's due to a beast that makes me happy all my subjects are a class of pathogens. Self-reporting. There's no way of getting hard data on these things. So what they do is gather a bunch of people who are willing to answer and extrapolate heavily. And I'm going to sound crass now, but if you're doing this study in the US, people would definitely make up these numbers because that's a part of the obesity epidemic, denial and self-victimization. The questionnaire asks if you have dieted, if you were successful, if it impacted your life, how young you were when you first went on a diet, and you could easily get these numbers. Everyone who's obese has tried dieting. The rates of obesity in the US indicate that many people fail. Instead of feeling like a failure, it's easier to claim that dieting was harmful to your mental health. And people have a tendency to think that thinking that you are fat and that you don't want to be at the age of 9 is still dieting. There are real problems behind these questions, but they get drowned out. We do see that some people develop eating disorders after dieting. We know that normal kids worry about being fat, and that's a huge problem. However, solving the obesity crisis and dismantling the actual tyranny of beauty would fix that. It has to be both, not just one. Laura Blooms brings us, I hate that this post is necessary. Taking our kids to the doctor should be a place we can relax and know our kids' bodies are safe there. And unfortunately, that is not always the case. Pediatricians are trained in the same medical system that other physician specialties are, and it's filled with weight stigma and anti-fat bias. As someone who remembers everything my pediatrician said about my body when I was a kid, when I take my kids to the doctor, I'm on high alert and ready to jump in to shut down any harmful conversations at any moment. When I took them earlier this week, as soon as I could tell the doctor was about to go over growth curves, I told her, we can skip that part. She wanted to show me the curves. I said, I don't need to see them. She wanted to ask about whether my kids eat fruits and vegetables and if they drink juice, and I said, we can skip this conversation. And we finally moved on. I know, as much as it breaks my heart, that I cannot protect my kids from all the problematic and harmful messages about bodies that are out there. They are 9 and they've already been exposed to a lot of them. But I can make sure that they know and trust that I will shut down any conversations when I am there with them. I can make sure that they know that their body, whatever size it is, will be safe with me. Benjo replies, I take my kids to the doctor to hear what a fabulous and brave parent I am, not to be lectured about the terrible job I'm doing with their nutrition and the horrible diseases they will endure as a result. Fluffy Emotion brings us,
a 2020 study looking at over 22,000 people and spanning 3 decades found that dieting is generally ineffective for weight loss and is longitudinally associated with weight gain and poor mental health.
Boldy tracked down the study. This study is to do with the mental health issues related to dieting and the current obesity strategy. Nothing whatsoever with whether dieting in itself works or not. The quoted bit is a throwaway comment in the study, not backed up at all by the authors of the study, which is very bad form, about diets not working, but that is all. And that conclusion in green is not something you can take from this study. Anon brings us something from the Fat Doctor UK.
Weight loss can shorten your life expectancy. Yep, you heard me. There are several studies that show this. This is particularly relevant in extreme weight loss. Weight loss is never the answer. Weight loss of 15% or more from maximum body weight is associated with increased risk of death from all causes among overweight men and women, regardless of maximum BMI. Ingram 2010.
Anon tracks down the study. Full text here. Apparently it was in Nature. Grumpalina adds, the discussion section clearly states that they aren't able to draw any conclusions since the reasons between the association of weight loss and mortality isn't well understood, and they point out the many flaws in the way the data was collected, since they don't know who lost weight intentionally or not, never verified the maximum weight reported, and didn't know how people got to their maximum weight and how long they were at that weight for, and that most people in the study were old people. The authors of the study aren't able to draw any causal relationship between the observed weight loss and mortality because they admit that there are too many other factors that they don't know or understand. But don't let that stop the HIES people using the study to say, see, weight loss is bad and it will kill you. From Interaction Anxious.
Bears binge before winter because they have no food during this season. No wonder we as humans binge when we regularly restrict. It's completely natural that our bodies want to protect us against starvation. It does so by ensuring we consume enough food after restriction. This is to ensure we have enough stores of energy to survive future restrictions. Our bodies pick up on eating patterns because it's looking out for you. There is no judgment on bears when they do this routinely every year. So why do we as a society judge others for managing their eating behaviors? Bear.
The Loudest Pen replies, here's a wild and crazy idea. Bear with me with this one. It's really out there and insane. How about, guys, listen please, how about we don't compare human behavior with other species as like they're different species and all that. It's so insane. Maybe we should all go and live at the bottom of the ocean because crazy, scary alien fish live down there, and they seem to be alright. Or maybe we should all eat raw meat like big cats, and they're all buff and athletic, so it must be good, right? Or we should all live in dwellings made out of silk, like spiders are happy to do. I Hate Melvin added, if I could make my own silk and make a house out of it, I might just give that a spin. That thing about bears brings us into dechonkers. We begin with a white and gray cat, kinda dappled looking. Posted by a key, successful dechonking, 17.8 pounds to 12.2 pounds. The next one's from Queen Calopsia. The cat's name is Snickers and he kind of looks like a Snickers bar, only with green eyes. Mr. Snickers went for his annual and he weighs 5 kilograms. Vet wants him to lose weight. I thought his weight was fine since he's a fairly large cat. I don't know, but in general I'd say listen to your vet or get a second opinion. Attack on Geckos brings us an old friend we haven't seen for about a year, maybe longer. My leopard gecko, Kirk, was once 150 kilograms. Now after 2 years of dieting, he has finally reached below 100 grams. Now my goal is to get him to 90 kilograms and keep him at that weight range. The first picture's from 2019 and the second one's from August 2021. The main difference is that he has less of a belly. And the last one comes to us from JFM. It's an orange cat with a white belly. 2-month update, celebrating her first pound lost. Thank you for all your help and support. I think I kind of remember this cat. He's just laying on a carpet this time, playing with a toy maybe. Thank you to everyone who helps support me to make these videos, and to everybody who comes and watches. A special thanks goes out to Hannah McNally, Carl Williams, and Sarah Ahern for their generous support. That's the end of the video. If you liked it, consider clicking like and subscribe. If you really liked it, consider becoming a member. As always, there should be more Fat Logic videos every other Monday, and on the weekends I'll be looking at videos made by fat logicians.